Okay, so good morning and welcome to Political Liaison for October 25th. We do have our agenda in front of you. I'm going to call the meeting to order by first looking to any identification of any media on the line.
Victoria Gray from the Turtle Island News.
Good morning, Victoria.
Good morning.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm also next going to go to any changes or additions and looking to the adoption of the agenda of October 25th. Is there a mover and seconder to adopt the agenda? Moved by Helen. Seconder?
Second, it's Hazel.
By Hazel. Are there any further questions or comments? Seeing or hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. We'll declare any conflict. We go through the agenda. 0 delegations or presentations on this agenda, which will lead us right into the adoption of the political liaison minutes of September 27th. Is there a mover and seconder for the minutes? Moved by Nathan. Seconder? Second by Helen. Are there any further questions or comments? Okay, seeing or hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. I'm going to move on to the next item on our agenda, which is the Lifelong Learning Task Force update, which is within your Dropbox. But I also see we have Heather Watts, members of the Lifelong Learning Task Force joining us this morning. So I will look to Heather. Good morning, Heather.
Good morning, Chief Hill.
Nice to see you again. I'll pass the floor right over to yourself just to further provide an update.
Great. So we do have a slide deck prepared this morning. So if we're able to share screen and have those capabilities, that would be great. We have a pretty fulsome update for Chief and Council, as well as we have members of the community tuning in this morning. So we do have a pretty fulsome update for everyone. I just want to take a moment here and introduce those of us who are on the line here, who are involved with the work of the Lifelong Learning Task Force. We do have a couple of our core team participants on the line, Mr. Phil Montour, as well as Mr. Christopher Mon, who does attend in representation of the Chief's office. So Nyawa, to both of you for your contributions and your support of the work, as well as our staff at the Education Coordination Office who are on the line. We have Riva Bomberry, who is our language and culture lead, Amber Squire, who is our language and culture specialist, Michael Hill, who is our policy and research analyst, as well as Clint Paulus, who is our finance analyst. And I also see that Karen Sandy is also here on the line. Hi, Karen, who is also one of our core team participants. So just wanted to make mention of all those wonderful folks here who are on the line, who are directly involved in the work of the Lifelong Learning Task Force. All right, so I'll move here to share screen. It's always interesting to see what's going to pop up here when you share screen. Okay, and we'll go into present mode. Okay, great. So first, we just wanted to say anyawa and thank you to Chief and Council for inviting us to provide an update here this morning. I know it's been a few months since we've been able to meet in this capacity, and we've been providing an update just via kind of more of a traditional paper update. So really happy for the opportunity to be here and have as much of a face-to-face update as is safe to do right now. So within this overall update, what we want to do and what what we hope to accomplish is to give a breakdown of the structure of the Lifelong Learning Task Force and how kind of these different bodies work together, the overall task force, as well as the core team, as well as the Education Coordination Office, and then get into more of the kind of nitty gritty in terms of where each of the studies are at within the project. Talk a little bit about community engagement strategies that we've been utilizing and what we've been hearing from community so far, and then get into ending with our projected timeline, which is something that has come up in recent core team meeting discussions. So just starting here, the mandate, I think it's always an important point to bring up the mandate right at the onset here, that the mandate of the Lifelong Learning Task Force, or I may refer to it as the LLTF just for not having to say Lifelong Learning Task Force so many times, was established in early 2018 and mandated to explore options and make recommendations on a world-class lifelong learning education system grounded in language and culture for 6 nations of the Grand River. This mandate further states that the task force will build on previous activity in this area and work with community members and internal and external partners in review of the current education system and development of a recommended plan for community consideration. And what I think there's a couple things in here that I think are really important to pull out. And at the LLTF, we really don't just see this mandate as something that is on paper that is in our terms of reference, but those pieces of grounded in language and culture are really, really paramount and foundational to our work, and something that we don't just see, in terms of filing reports or putting that on paper, but something that is really, really important when we think about the foundation for our education system here at 6 Nations. It's not just about teaching language and culture. It's about how does the administration, how is that grounded in language and culture? How are operations grounded in language and culture? And what I'll make note of here is that something that is both very exciting, in addition, almost daunting at times, and feels like a great amount of good work to be done, is that we are kind of in the process with community co-creating something that has not been created before. Of course, we know we can look to other neighboring First Nations, Indigenous communities around the world, in addition to neighboring districts. But what we're really trying to do here in co-creation with community is look to create something that is unique to the needs and to the wants, to the dreams and to the opportunities of current 6 Nations students and our learners and faces yet to come. So I think that's something that we really want to state here, is that this is work that is new work, that is co-creating with community, all with language and culture being at the foundation, at the center of our work. Okay. We have 3 kind of different bodies here that are working together with the Lifelong Learning Task Force, and I'll get into the responsibilities and roles of each in just a moment. Just by way of kind of a high level overall kind of information here, is that the 6 Nations Lifelong Learning Task Force, right, is kind of that overall participation. We have organizations and departments from across 6 Nations that are participating in the Lifelong Learning Task Force. We then have our core team of participants, which is eight participants who sit on the core team that really provide that guidance and leadership to the Education Coordination Office to be able to kind of liaise between the Lifelong Learning Task Force as well as the core team. The Education Coordination Office is comprised of 5 staff members, all of which I introduced at the beginning of this call. Okay. So for the overall task force, and I'm not going to read kind of everything that's on this slide here, but just some overall roles and responsibilities. So the LLTF, the overall LLTF, provides feedback and input on all activities in the development and recommendations of this draft plan, world-class education system for 6 nations. The LLTF may provide recommendations to the core team or may suggest to the core team things that should be presented to 6 Nations of the Grand River Elected Council or a designated committee. In addition, I think something that's really, really important about the overall LLTF is that we have folks with touch points in so many different areas of the community, such as 6 Nations Health, such as 6 Nations Social Services, such as working in the various schools in the community, and they're on the front lines. Doing this really, really important work in relation to education or services that are directly complementary or related to education. And so having those folks with those experiences and with those expertise, involved in the Lifelong Learning Task Force is absolutely important. I know tuning into various council meetings before, there's been a lot of talk of really wanting to break down those silos and not work in silos. And I think that that's something that we really find valuable when we do come together as a task force, is getting to have that input and insight from folks who are working in different areas within the community. Just more by way of responsibilities, more responsibilities for the LLTF may include assisting in the communication or information sharing that is coming out of the work of the Education Coordination Office, as well as participating in task force meetings or on task force subcommittees or task forces, which we will get into kind of giving a quick snippet of each of those task forces later on in the meeting. And Chief Hill, anytime you need me to stop, you just let me know. You can interrupt me, and that's fine. In terms of the core team, so again, the core team does consist of 8 participants, and we have folks represented from various educational institutions in the territory, as well as our LLTF core team chair, which is Audrey Paulus-Montgomery, who is an elected councillor who sits on 6 Nations, the Grand River Elected Council. The roles and responsibilities of the core team are to oversee all activity related to the development of draft recommendations on a world-class lifelong learning education system for 6 Nations, and to be that direct line to bring political matters to this specific committee, the political liaison at 6 Nations Elected Council. Other responsibilities, relationship building with and maintenance of those relationships with internal and external partners. So I know we have members of the core team who attend, various meetings, such as with First Nations with Schools Collective, such as with Chiefs of Ontario, may attend meetings with Assembly of First Nations as representation of the task force. The core team works directly with the 6 Nations education manager to review any type of work plans or proposals, RFPs, requests for proposals for task force activities, and providing recommendations for discussion within the task force. And again, this core team reports directly into political liaison, usually by way of just a paper update or an update such as this that we're gathered here for today. Right. And then lastly, the Education Coordination Office. So we have 5 folks on staff. What you will see is I have 6 positions listed there, and I'll explain that in just a moment. We have the education manager who works directly with the core team and reports to Senior Administrative Officer Darren Jameson. As was mentioned at the beginning of the call, we have our Education, Language, and Culture Lead, which is Reva Bomberry, Education, Language, and Culture Specialist, which is Amber Squire, Education Academic Lead, which currently that position is my position. And right now I am the Acting Education Manager. So, that position is it's not completely vacant. I am still doing a lot of the work associated with academic lead until we do have a new manager that is hired. An education policy analyst, which is Michael Hill, and education finance analyst, which is Clinton Palace. And again, our responsibilities are to be, in direct communication with research consultants. So in a moment, I will dive into providing an update in terms of where each of those studies are at. And it's our responsibility at the Education Coordination Office to, draft research for proposal requests. In addition to having that direct communique with research consultants on the status of the report, if they need support in terms of getting in touch with folks that they wish to conduct research with. In addition, we conduct our own research on policies and programs in other Indigenous communities. So oftentimes we may be reaching out to communities. I know Amber is doing a lot of communication with folks out in Ganawagi. And so it's our job also to take on our own kind of research responsibilities in terms of policies and programs in other Indigenous or First Nations communities. So when research consultants are typically doing reports, they will put forward some recommendations of their own in relation to the research area that they have been hired to conduct work on. And so it's our job to then look at those kind of draft recommendations and analyze them, right? And put them before the core team and think, well, which of these recommendations do we want to move forward and before the LLTF and then for broader community engagement. And in addition, leading focus groups and test teams, which we'll talk about in a moment here. In addition, sharing relevant information regarding Indigenous education opportunities with the LLTF. So most recent example I can think of here is there was a First Nation that was having a conference on language revitalization, and they did a call out looking for youth speakers to come and be a part of that conference. So that was something that went out to the broader LLTF to share with their contacts. Right. Just actually a little plug here. By direction of the core team here, I share a call out that we have. As the Six Nations Lifelong Learning Task Force is seeking a youth participant to sit on the core team. And so this is, you can find this on our social media right now, and you can head over to snlifelonglearning.ca for more information. But just some kind of quick details here, as we would be looking for youth between the ages of 18 to 29. Experience in a Six Nations school is a preference, not necessarily a must-have, but definitely a preference. The youth participant who is selected will receive an honorarium for their time, and there is a Google form to go ahead and apply. Or if you are able to get in contact with me, I can of course bring a paper copy of questions that we have provided, just to get to know a little bit more about the youth who would like to apply. Okay. So project update summary. So we'll get into kind of going through each of the studies here very quickly. I'm not going to read, some of these studies are 100+ pages long, and so we will not go into everything that is listed in these studies, but more provide a high level summary of where the study is at in this information processing cycle. So this is a graphic we use quite often, actually, in terms of really trying to communicate the information processing cycle of our work. So step 1 in the yellow, gathering information. Step 2 in the green, sharing information. Step 3 in the purple, obtaining input. And step 4 in the is recommendation writing, which is in the brown. And I think something that's really important to note here is that when we get to step 3 and 4, we kind of almost do this dance between 3 and 4, as we may obtain input on a draft definition or draft recommendation. And that gets put out for feedback. And then we may actually enter into a second round of those draft recommendations or draft definitions based on the input and feedback from the first round. Because again, we're really about co-creation here, and we're really wanting to ensure that the voices of community members are represented. So going between that step 3 and 4 actually might take kind of a few rounds as we are honing and refining based on community input. Okay. So again, here, just kind of a high level summary of where each study is at. So we have, a number of studies here that have been done or are currently in operation or are currently active. So we have a total of 9 studies that we have on the screen here. Early on, a language learning center study, which is about 75% complete. So all the studies that are actually listed in purple, those studies have all had a final report that has been submitted. And those studies now are kind of, like I said, in between that, that step 3 and step 4 space here, obtaining input and draft recommendations and going back and forth between the two. We have an information management and technology study that is, again, final report has been submitted and we're 75% of the way complete with that. Support services at the same level, special education at the same level, parental and community involvement also at the same level, and the secondary school study, which had just been recently completed at the same level. So that will be ready to go forward for community engagement very soon. The studies that are in yellow at the bottom do not have a final report that has been submitted. For both the transportation and the capital and infrastructure studies, those studies have had an initial report that has been submitted and will be wrapping up and completing in a more finalized way. We've been told by end of this year that those studies should be wrapping up. Our holistic education study is the study that was just started late this summer. So it's only about 25% of the way done with a literature review that is in the works for that study. So it's very kind of introductory so far. So I'm not going to read up everything on these slides. This is really information for council as well as folks on the line here. So how each of these slides are laid out is, again, kind of go through each study, the percentage of where it's at in terms of being complete. Again, everything that's in purple, we have a final report, and now it is the work of us, of the Education Coordination Office, and in consultation with the core team and the broader LLTF to then put this forward for community engagement. So with these studies, what we have on the slides here are the name of the study, the percentage of the way it is gone through the information processing cycle, in addition to when the study took place, who led the study, and then this is information for council who have this slide deck. I think in PDF form, if you actually click on this link here, it will directly take you to the final report for that study. I do see a hand here, so I'm going to stop. And I don't know, Chief Hill, you wanted to jump in and facilitate or direct, or I can call on Councilor Johnson myself, but I'll step back and let you take the lead and jump in here.
Okay, thank you, Nyawa, so much for that, Heather. I will look to Councilor Johnson for a question or comment.
Thanks so much, and sorry to interrupt you, Heather. If you go back to the project update summary.
Yep.
This is the slide before. Just a quick question. So when you're submitting, or the core team, the task force is submitting proposals, I assume it's for additional funding. So if I'm understanding this correctly, so when you do the reports in these areas, they're submitted to the funder, correct?
Yes.
So when I look at some of these pieces, so if you're getting, for example, ISC funding, those reports are going forward. So what happens to that? And then is there any risk, I guess I'll use that word, or concern that they're getting this information, which we've not agreed to yet? I know it's going into the final recommendations and that final end report that goes to community for decision. But in the interim, we're flowing all of this information, all of these findings, this study into ISC. And depending what the decision is of the committee, I mean, that's where where we'll go to discuss education. And they have all of this information in front of that decision or that process. So just, in terms of the task force, have you done an assessment on that, an analysis on, and the risk of doing that? Because this is a lot of information.
Right. And I think that's a really, really great question. And I really value bringing that forward here. When we have, submitted these reports, and maybe I'll actually get the Clint to comment further on this. From my understanding, it's more of them taking the standpoint in almost proof, has this been done? And what we see these reports as operating from is that whatever recommendations have been put forward in these final reports are not necessarily verbatim, word for word, going to be the recommendations that then make it in the lifelong learning strategy that is then put forward to the community. Because we know that, some of these reports were done in 2019, and even in a short 2 years, things have changed a lot in the education landscape. And so we need to also be in consultation with our educators, with our parents, with our caregivers, with our students, and with our administrators, and I guess more just largely, the community in general, in terms of informing these strategies and informing these recommendations going forward. Something I will say, in terms of looking at, our kind of most recent pot of funding, something that was approved was to look at hiring someone for specific risk management more role. And so that's something that, us at the Education Coordination Office are working in conjunction with the core team in terms of looking at, really what would be the responsibilities of that person going forward in terms of thinking about risk in relation to our project work.
Okay, looking a follow-up question or comment.
Yeah,
Wendy?
thanks. So I appreciate that, and I understand in terms of how this may or may not be perceived on the other end with the funder, but they still have the information. So when I look at capital and infrastructure, and I know it's in yellow, the fact that we've been trying to support Gawineo and getting a new school, that's on the capital side and that infrastructure piece. So is there anything that could be used against us in that process? So that's what I'm getting at. And so that's why I asked the risk and if anything's been done. And, because we do proposals to get additional funding, but at what cost back to the community? And I guess what's the balance of that? That's what I was looking for, but thanks for the answer.
No, and I think that's, and I really, value that perspective and that type of thinking. I think that's the type of thinking that's really strategic and forward and thinking about, like we're receiving additional funds or seeking additional funds for the larger support of this work. And also, at what cost, I think is something that's really important. In terms of those 3 studies, I believe, and Clint, you might want to jump in here to provide kind of more of the finance kind of the details here, but it's just been very much, a kind of paragraph kind of update in terms of where those studies are at, and there has been no initial report that has been shared, just more so the reports that are in purple. But no, I think you bring forward a really, really important point that can inform our conversations going forward with the core team as well as the broader LLTF when thinking about risk mitigation and risk management. Again, it's really interesting. I think we learn new things about different nuances and challenges of this project quite often, as again, this is something that is really unique and something that has not been done before. New challenges kind of present themselves all the time. So Clint, I don't know if you wanted to give a brief comment in terms of submission and report back to ISC on studies.
Yeah, I'll just give a quick confirmation that yes, we do. We do detail, it's in our proposal that what it is we're looking to do, and we get funded for that. And we don't always report back exactly to what our proposal was, but in that process, we do submit finalized reports. So most of those reports that are in purple have been, I guess, reported back as complete. But the reports that are in orange have not as of yet, because they're not complete.
Great. Great, amazing. And like I said, you know, for council who does have this in PDF form, you know, the what is here, I'm like pointing at the screen like you can see it, you can't. What is here is a direct link that will lead you to the final report, which is nested on our website, and it'll take you directly to that. I know for folks tuning in, you know, via Facebook Live, you don't have this directly in front of you. And so all of the final reports do live on our website at snlifelonglearning.ca. Don't mean to be a commercial here, but there's a lot of great information on our website, and we encourage you to go there. I see another hand here, so I'm going to turn it back over to you, Chief.
Okay, Nyawa for that, Heather. Just before I see a couple hands, Councilor Miller first, and then I'll shift over to Phil Montour. Helen, you have the floor.
The purple lines are the ones that are ready for engagement, right?
Yes, and some of them have already been
So
up for
is this-
engagement.
Is
Yes.
this engagement open to the community, or are these selected focus groups, or is it going to be open engagements for the community?
Yep, great question. So we actually utilize, you know, with COVID, we knew that we were not going to be able to meet in person and, you know, have engagement, you know, sitting at the community hall, which is what we would love to do, right? Is have like various education symposiums where we're able to put things in front of folks. We sit at round tables and we discuss the content of what's there. That's an ideal situation. We know with COVID, it's not safe to do so at this point, and it hasn't been safe for some time. And so we made a decision early last year to actually purchase a license for this online engagement platform, which is called Othello. And so when you go on Othello, and you have to sign up, and so, you know, it is kind of annoying for about 3 minutes where you have to sign up for it. But then when you're signed up, you gain access to this portal where all of the current kind of recommendations that are in draft form are on there. And it's actually a really neat process on Othello. People have gone on there and, you know, provided paragraphs of feedback, or they have gone through and you know, clicked like, I am in support of this, or maybe we should think more about this, for instance, and we'll share that in a moment here. I can actually share with you what we've heard back from the community in terms of what are those priorities that they're really interested in learning more about and working on, in addition to overall feedback. But yes, Othello is absolutely 100% open to all community members. We also know that not everyone has internet access. And so if folks, you know, do get in contact with those of us at the Education Coordination Office, we have no problem printing off those draft recommendations and providing those to folks in paper form. And we'll even deliver them.
Yeah, you know, I can appreciate all of the technology and everything that's being used because of COVID, but my concern is the majority of community members are probably not being reached, are probably not responding. Like I know a lot of my own family, my older family members, they don't even go on computers or nothing, so it's not likely they're going to respond to anything. So that's my concern, that I know it's because of COVID, and I know it's technology, but I'm concerned that we're leaving a large majority of our community out of the process. And ever since the Lifelong Learning Task Force started, I've always promoted the community referendum at the end, because that's what I believe we need to do in order to get everyone to participate. I don't know if the Lifelong Learning Task Force is aiming for a referendum at the end, but that's what I've certainly been recommending right from the beginning. So I know how focus groups work. I know how all that people get invited. It's not your average person walking down the street that's going to sit on a focus group. So I just feel a lot of people are going to be left out of this process.
Right, and I really appreciate that, those comments, Councilor Miller. I think something that's really important that we've really been trying to be cognizant and have that at the forefront of our minds is we're not only seeking the advice of people who are in academia, right? Or people who take that, are involved in post-secondary, because we know that everyone is a stakeholder. Everyone is involved when it comes to education at Six Nations, right? We have brilliant folks who are working in trades, brilliant folks who are entrepreneurs, brilliant folks who are reclaiming and doing that really, really important work of language revitalization, right? And all of that type of learning doesn't look the same, right? And so we can't prioritize and think about only one type of person that we want to hear feedback from, right? We don't only want to hear from academics. Of course, we want to hear from academics, but we want to hear from folks who whose learning journey looks different from all these different paths as well. And so I can really appreciate what you're sharing here, that while technology, can provide access, but it can also limit access for those who are not using technology. And I wish I had a better answer for that. I wish we could go into various places in the community. I wish we could go to the lodge and be with elders. And I hope we come to a point when we're able to do that in the near future. Until then, we provide our updates and we submit requests for collaboration and for presentations, and kind of just hope that folks will engage. We are also working and speaking with other community organizations and departments who have expressed kind of a similar issue when it comes to community engagement. As we know, I think a lot of folks are feeling really over surveyed and over Zoomed and over Microsoft Teams right now. And so that presents another set of challenges that I think no one was anticipating back when this work was mandated in 2018. So, I hear your concerns and really value those concerns. And yeah, wanting to reach as many folks as we can. So Nyawan, thank you for that.
Okay, now Heather for that. I'll go next to Phil, who has his hand up for a question or comment.
Yes, thank you, Chief. I guess the whole thing is we've got to be like, this is an inventory based on our community's needs and shortfalls. And that's what this process is about, is identifying it for future discussions and where we're going. We're not to that point yet, but it's just a big inventory for us to basically customize our education for what's best for us. They're all great questions you bring up, especially this community engagement. How do we address that? It's always been a challenge, not just for Six Nations, but for everyone. But I'm sure that the team that they've got in place will certainly try their best. But this is needed in all, a study like this is needed in health, it's needed in social, it's needed in policing, it's needed on all the issues that are coming before us, because we've never had in-depth, what are all of our shortfalls? These, and where would we like to go? Where do we want to go? Where do we want to take our education to a first-class operation beyond Ontario's, I'll say, failures in their education system, but also our focusing on our culture and language. So I think it's a good overlay, and it's items that this council and future councils are going to need to help guide them when we do get into discussions. And I guess what Wendy's question is, at what point do we get into the hardcore discussions? But at least we'll have the information, and that's what this has taken us towards. So I think it's a great amount of work, and it's good work. And nobody is, as Heather pointed out, nobody ever expected we'd be into a COVID situation when we started this. They're doing the best they can. So if we can just keep on with this inventory, and I really hope this council, the previous councillors before were what, Helen, Hazel, Audrey, Melba, Sherry Lynn, Carrie, and you, Chief Hill. Like, that was the type of thinking on how we were entering into these when we just discussed the global solutions. So these are, that's what the overall objective of this. And if there's a referendum, Helen, that's a very good question. That's a key question. Those are things that we're going to have to talk about once we get all this inventory done. So thank you.
Okay, now, and thank you for that, Phil. I just wanted to acknowledge Councilor Miller's question in the chat as well, Heather, in relation to what is a regular teacher that she had put into the chat. So I'll just pass that over to you, and then we'll get back into your presentation.
Great. So I think in terms of, I think regular is, and this is something in the education landscape that I think we take on quite often, that the whole notion of regular or typical or normal is something we're really trying to deconstruct, right? As we know, there are different folks with different needs and different learning styles and different way that we communicate and share information. And I think when we're thinking about our educators, while there are some things where for accountability purposes, we may want standardization from, we also do want that personality to come through with educators, right? And not be conducting themselves in a more kind of standardized or robotic way. So, in terms of regular, I think, when we think about the education system at Six Nations, right? What is it that we're really trying to get at here, right? What is at the core and what is at the heart of this work? And this is something that actually our core team, one of our core team participants, Diane Longboat, who's on the call right now, has shared in one of our core team meetings, is that we are looking to cultivate and to support and to help build strong Haudenosaunee citizens. Right. And there's something, I almost get chills when I say that, because then we start to think about, well, what goes into that, right? What kind of love and what kind of care? And of course, there's going to be content, right? Like we always know there's going to be content, there's going to be standards and things that we want, but also what kind of learning environment are our students going to be walking into? What kind of learning environments are our teachers going to be walking into? And I want to also kind of pay homage and respect to the work that is already going on in our schools, right? Our schools are thinking about this. Our schools are actively trying, to be innovative and to make those changes to meet the needs of our students, all in the determination to build strong Haudenosaunee citizens. So I'm going to keep going here with our update. So these slides, I don't think I'm going to go, slide by slide here, as I don't think it's necessary. It's more, this is how, they're all laid out, kind of just for information for council. Again, list when the study was done, maybe a brief synopsis of what the RFP or request for proposal was. And the final report is linked there for each of these studies. Sorry if anyone's getting whiplash here as I move through these slides. This is the most recent study that has been completed with a final report, which is the secondary school feasibility study. And what I should say about this is from a pedagogy standpoint. This is from what types of things should be included in a secondary school, where First Nations Engineering Services is thinking more, what would the cost be about behind this study. So it's kind of a collaborative effort here. And currently this final report is under review by core team. And as soon as that review is done, folks on the call here from Chief and Council will receive that report. Okay. And again, these are the 3 studies that are still currently active: transportation, capital and infrastructure, as well as holistic education. We all have been made aware also by SAO Darren Jameson that there has been an infrastructure committee that has recently been formed, which will have touch points with the lifelong learning task force. So we're really excited and look forward to participating, learning and contributing to that when the time comes. Okay, community engagement. So which has been, we'll kind of just be very transparent here, which has been difficult as of late. What I'll share kind of right at the onset here in terms of all in the spirit of breaking down silos is we were in contact with the health planning team, which was, I think, previously named health transformation team, but is now the health planning team, in terms of what are some successful community engagement strategies they have utilized, that we have utilized, as we're both thinking about, kind of a more futuristic, and what does this a health system that is for Six Nations, as well as an education system that is for Six Nations, what does that look like, right, on our own terms? And so we've actually been meeting, I think we've had 3 meetings so far with that team, and we're just sharing successes and also looking for feedback, and also thinking about future opportunities where we can collaborate and have discussions on maybe both health and education, right? And bring folks together, because if we're able to get folks in a virtual room, for an hour, we'd love to be able to share the platform to share information and gain feedback. Again, we do have our website. When folks click on that send me updates link or kind of toggle there, you will be subscribed to be able to receive the monthly newsletter and updates that come from the Lifelong Learning Task Force. We do as well our bi-weekly Ed Talks on CKRZ. I believe we have done 11 Ed Talks so far, which is, I can remember our planning stages for Ed Talks just happening in April. So it's crazy to think we're already at 11 episodes, but it's been a great place to share information about education in terms of having guest speakers. We have had Six Nations Language Commission come on the line. We have shared the progress or status of these reports, our current research, and most recently we've shared a 1984 dissertation that came out of University of Toronto Oise entitled Iroquois Control of Iroquois Education. And so it's this really interesting, long 800-page study, which we've spent, I think, 5 episodes of our Ed Talks going through and explaining the significance of that study and how that impacts our work. And then in addition, we have social media, Facebook and Instagram, which we are using for community engagement. Again, our monthly newsletter and work plan summary do get sent out to the LLTF and to folks who subscribe to the website. And Chief Hill, I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay, perfect. Now for that, Heather, I'll go back now to Wendy for question and comment.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you, Heather. So just wanted to say quickly, I really appreciate the collaboration, the working, as you gave an example, working with health services on looking to the future in that planning piece, because I just think about the community plan and all of those pillars within that plan. And so if we're engaging community collectively to talk about, that way forward in that lens, I think that's a really positive piece. So we're getting out of the silos and working together. So really appreciate that. Thanks.
Yeah, and there's a great amount to learn, I think, from health services, social services. I think those are the two that we see a lot of ties with in relation to education. Obviously, there are more departments, and I know there's kind of initial stages and talks going on, with those departments, I think, in another committee of council in terms of what does that collaboration look like more broadly going forward, working with health, social services, LLTF, as well as other organizations all around community wellness and the future of our community. Chief Hill, back to you.
Okay, thank you. Now for that, Heather, I have another hand being raised. Helen.
Hey, this is a question you might not be able to answer. I don't know, but under the Indigenous Services Act, which was passed in 2019, and I wrote an article about this in the newspaper not too long ago, it's transferring everything to First Nations. It's transferring education, housing, health, social, anything you can think of, they're transferring to First Nations. What they're doing is they're going to transfer everything to a First Nations institution or organization. They're not transferring anything to council or the First Nations itself. It's going to all go, each one of these different entities are going to go to a First Nations organization or institution. So I'm just wondering, in the work you're doing in your talks with the ISK and whatever, has there been any indication what education institution they're going to refer education to when the time comes? Have they said anything?
So I don't have any further comments on that in terms of discussions with ISC. But what I will say is that that's kind of almost the want or desire to work with one kind of larger education entity, I think was the whole kind of reasoning behind the starting for the LLTF in the first place, right? Knowing that, okay, there are all these different education bodies in the community that are doing great work, right? And how can we have kind of one central, it's not, I don't even want to put a word like unit or one central body that is able to communicate to all those different education institutions, I think was really, the thought behind the work of the LLTF in the beginning. And so, right, that is why we do the work that we do in terms of wanting to learn what is going on in all those different spaces, so we can kind of have that survey or that inventory as Phil Montour shared earlier. So yeah, nothing further in terms of discussions with ISC, but I think a really important point to bring up. I think that we always have kind of here in the background as we're thinking about recommendations specifically around governance going forward.
Well, just caution to keep your ears open, because that's what it's going to be an education entity in Ontario that they're going to be referring education to. ISC is getting out of the work of us. Use a different word. ISC is getting out of working with Indians. They're transferring everything, and they're going to transfer everything to an Indigenous organization or institution in Ontario. And they're doing it all across Canada, but in Ontario. So they're going to do housing, they're going to do health, they're doing everything. So it's just something to keep, I guess, for all you task members traveling around or doing whatever, to keep that in mind, or keep your ears open to find out what's going on, because it's right in the Indigenous Services Act that they're going to do that. And that's why they're pushing them right now. Councils, they're pushing us to do health. They're pushing us to do child welfare. They're pushing us to do housing. They're turning housing over to an institution of some sort. So it's something that you need to be aware of and keep your ears open to find out what's going on.
And Yama, for that, Councilor Miller, and I, as you say that, I think it, is an important conversation, to be having, amongst, at the LLTF, but also with these other departments and organizations, right, in terms of tackling that question and what it is they may be hearing and strategizing around. So, Yama, for that.
Okay, now,
They're all, and just one more comment, Mark.
oh, sorry.
And
Yep.
they're funding, giving a lot of money to people to do 6-week community engagements. Housing right now is doing 6 weeks community engagement. Child welfare is doing 6 weeks community engagement. So you're going to have 6 weeks to do your engagement. You're getting lots of money for it. They're giving everybody money.
Thank you. Thanks for that, Helen. And as we know, definitely not enough time to do type of an engagement. I know we already, Heather has spoke to some of those challenges that we've been faced with, but I think obviously even with COVID times, it makes that even more challenging. But nonetheless, I think it's important too, that we have to get creative in a sense of, do we have to, for these bigger questions or bigger types of, engagement questions that we need answered from community members, like, do we have to go door to door? I mean, there's some of those things I think that we talked about that, spending that time and spending those dollars on a thorough, detailed community plan, to get the answers that we're looking for. I know we always talk about the silent majority and what that means, and that's been the question of the day and previous is, how do we get that silent majority to really speak up and get engaged? And so I think that might be something that we need to even further discuss when looking at the bigger questions that we need answered. I see Phil has his hand raised as well. Phil?
Yes, thank you. Councilor Miller brought up something about this transfers to associations. I mean, that's always been a challenge that Space Six Nations, you know, we're large enough, we're building capacity as much as we can or are able to on very restricted dollars to do things our way, what's best for us, instead of just downloading to associations. So that's something we've got to be very, very aware of. And this inventories like this on education, I got to repeat, we're going to have to do this for all of the services that this council provides for our community and oversees for our community. Because I think it was 2012, we did the shadow report to CERD, what Canada reported to the United Nations that, oh, we're taking care of all the Indigenous people in Canada, everybody's happy. When we did that inventory down here at Six Nations, it was so evident that the shortfalls we're facing. And I'm amazed that we're able to provide the amount of services we can to our community with what limited resources we have. So if we can identify these, it'll prepare us for these battles that we're going to face down the future. No doubt it's going to be a battle. You're absolutely right, Councilor Miller. They're going to try and dump everything they can. If we won't take it under their terms and conditions, they're going to dump it to an association. But we've got to stand up to the plate and have a plan. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. And we won't do it for anything unless there's guaranteed stable finances to see us to get this done properly. That's very, very important. That's how we approach, because that's why we walked away from the table on education in the 80s and 90s, because they just wanted to dump it and wash their hands clean of it after they've created all this mess. So I think this is a wonderful discussion you're having, and I think you got a good team in place to at least do the template for the other reports that we have to, an inventory taken that we have to do. I think this is a great start. So with that, I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that, Phil. And I know we just want to also acknowledge, I want to acknowledge Councilor Wright's comment in the chat as well. I know we've been having conversations on this issue as brought up by Councilor Miller in relation to the devolution issue. And so, you know, just want to reiterate or repeat Nathan's comment in relation to, you know, really feeling the need to deal with the devolution issue at the front end and as a priority, and to make our position public. So again, we've been having these conversations because we see it happening across the board in different sectors. And so we're definitely doing, you know, the political work that we need to in order to just make that position and make it clear and known to government and community of our position. So you're correct in that, Phil, and appreciate that, as you know, definitely good conversations and where we got to go at this point in time here. I see Councilor Wendy has her hand up.
Yeah, thanks. Just a quick question. So, I've asked this a few times actually since being on council. So all of this work being done is so extensive, but what have we taken from previous work? Because this isn't the first go around with this. I think this is the third, if I'm not mistaken. Phil, you probably know better, but there's been extensive work done at looking at education, you know, whether or not to take that over moving forward. And we're going through this process again. So have we taken information or sort of what the community decision was, why it wasn't selected? Are we using that as well and doing some sort of a comparison? Because what's changed in this process here? So if we're taking it forward to community, I think that would be critical to have that, to say this is where we've come from, this is the why, this is what we've done now, and this is a change, this is why it's better or it's not better, to tie into the recommendations being made. I just think that's a missing piece in this process.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, right? And that's something that's, you know, stated in our mandate in terms of like building off of, you know, previous efforts and previous work in this area, because we know, you know, this is not the first go around, you know, in terms of this type of work. I think, you know, what has, you know, what we are adding, I wouldn't say what we're, you know, doing necessarily differently or better, but what we're adding, right, is this current context when we're thinking about skills that we really want students to be able to be acquiring, and I think language and culture being the underpinning of everything that we're going to be putting forward, I think is something that is unique and something that it is something that is a big I don't even know the word for it, but it's a big task to be able to think about, well, how does that infiltrate all these different parts of an education system? In addition to this, central coordinated system, which we've been hearing from community is what folks want, right? And that's coming out of early community engagement with the LLTF. I think something else that's important to note is, folks who were involved in those other studies, right, such as Rebecca Jameson, such as, Audrey Fallis-Bombery, and such as Claudine Vinivre-Albert, right, have been involved in the work of the LLTF. So not only do we have those reports, right, of research that was conducted previously, obviously that needs to be, had needed to be added to and updated for the current context, right, and where we are with the current landscape. But also we have those folks as institutional memory of what those processes look like. And I think that's something that's really valuable, right, in terms of having those minds at the table, and helping strategize and be critical of the work going forward.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. Do you have a follow-up piece, Wendy?
I do, and I'd be amiss if I didn't raise it, because I raise it every time. But when I think about education, and we talk about lifelong learning, and we talk about a world-class system, I know that this is broken into phases, and the first one is K to 12. But when we look at that continuum, there's so much more to it, and it's always my concern that going forward with recommendations and the results of this in that section. So we leave out anything that's before K, and then we leave out all of post-secondary trades, all of that piece. And we know that from K to 12, you need that next piece if we're going to build secure economies in our communities, particularly here at Six Nations. So, and there's so much going on around us. Again, it goes back to that risk analysis. What are we risking by only doing this section now? And will we get the opportunity to even address the other pieces because we separated it out? It would be nice if we had that placeholder and did, we're doing something in that regard. Because I think about, the Language Commission, and I'm really glad to see that Karen is, a part of this, as is Reva. But in terms of making sure that we have speakers who can educate and train, we need to build in that component so we have that continuum. We know that it's an issue in our schools right now where, people are teaching language who are not even from our community, who are not even, Indigenous. So, we need to make sure that we have those other pieces, because they all connect back into that whole education picture. Thanks.
Right, and then I'll speak to this, kind of more later when we get into talking about, the projected timeline for the completion of the overall lifelong learning strategy. And I think that's something that, we've been discussing more at the Education Coordination Office, as well as the core team, right? Is thinking about, well, that perhaps some of this work needs to be simultaneous, right? And into thinking about early years and thinking about post-secondary. We do know that there's movement going on in both of those areas, kind of outside of the LLTF being involved. And so we need to know what it is that's going on in those areas in terms of movement, and conduct studies and possibly have folks on staff, right, who are completely, kind of dedicated to maybe those portfolios specifically. Because what I really hear and appreciate in your point, right, is that if we're talking about lifelong, what is happening at early years is going to affect what's going on in kindergarten, what's going to affect what's going on in 5th grade, and then we're thinking about students more in middle school and secondary, that If post-secondary is a journey or is a pathway that a student wants to explore, right, then whatever it is that we're strategizing around post-secondary needs to be already thought of when we're thinking about the types of learning experiences that we would like to present and make available to students in K through 12. So, I hear you, and we have heard that, in previous, conversations that we've had here at council. And so we are, taking that seriously and thinking about, kind of more the simultaneity of this work going forward.
Okay, now Heather for those responses and conversation. I don't see any further hands up at this point in time. So what I'll do is pass it back over to you, Heather, to re-engage back in your presentation.
Great, and really, thank you for the time this morning. I know we've been going for about an hour here, so I do want to be mindful of not taking up the whole time, because I know you do have an agenda here. Do just want to invite actually 4 members of our team here to jump in to touch on community engagement, and then we will be kind of looking to wrap up our presentation by then sharing with you what it is we've been hearing from folks, specifically on the Othello online engagement platform. So in kind of each of these kind of snippets here, we'll invite Michael in to share briefly what has the work of the governance task team been, as well as what will the new work of this new forming governance focus group look like. Clinton will touch briefly on the funding task team and kind of the scope of that work so far. And then we'll turn it over to both Riva and Amber to touch on the work of the Ongwehongwe Advisory Group, which is a lot of really good things happening there. So Michael, I invite you in and pass the mic over to you, Michael, to talk about governance.
All right, yeah, Heather. Yeah, so just kind of give a brief update as to what the governance task team, I guess, came up with. So earlier this year, we met for several months, from December to I think May it was, and essentially just what came from those discussions were just the creation of an advisory group, as well as what would look like as an education board, with a focus on community accountability and engagement, as well as looking at how we would better support teachers, increasing parental community engagement, and other like accountability mechanisms, such as like a strategic plan or even annual reporting. So these discussions did go through our core team and our Ongwehongwe Advisory Group, which has kind of identified that there was an issue with what was the linkage between community and the board, as well as it would just seem like, specifically to the advisory group, it would just seem like another step in bureaucracy for the community to kind of get to the board. So we did kind of table those discussions, and what we are going to be doing is kind of reestablishing another governance focus group. Our core team also thought it'd be best to kind of present multiple recommendations on a governance model to the community. And so we will be starting another governance focus group soon. And what we kind of hope to discuss with this group is kind of creating a rationale for recovery of education, as well as outlining those processes and various protocols and operations, as well as developing a more clear accountability framework. Again, doing environmental scans of other systems, even engaging with other communities. It's been suggested several times that we reach out to other, our sister communities who have recovered education and kind of speak to them on their governance and how that kind of operates, specifically Akwesasne and Kahnawake. Yeah, and as well as hopefully we'll get to discuss what programming and curriculum could look like with this governance model. And then of course we'll transition into community engagement. Yeah, so were there any other questions at all related to that?
Thank you, Michael. I think, a really kind of important point here that came out of discussions with the LLTF as well as the Ongwehongwe Advisory Group is what we don't want to do and what we can't do is simply lift another governance model from like a neighboring district or a neighboring community and slap some Mohawk and Cayuga language or terms in there and call it a Six Nations education governance system. right? That's something we can't do, and something we won't do, which is why that co-creation with community members of this system and kind of multiple iterations of it, I think is something that's really important and something we're taking very seriously, which is why, you know, kind of the forming of an additional group to have more eyes and minds around the issue. Okay, great. Well, now I'm Michael, and so I'll introduce here our finance analyst, Clinton Paulus, to touch briefly on what the funding task team has worked on.
Okay, the funding, the funding task team of work I've been asked to talk about the work that's been done up to now. And I guess one of the key pieces, it's very complex, but one of the key pieces, I guess, is foundational to it, is that there's been an analysis done of the Deloitte report. The Deloitte report is very specific to us, and there are components in there that can form a basis of a model. The Deloitte report isn't a model, a funding model, but it does bring forth a lot of components. So that has been modeled, and it has been analyzed as to what the basis of those figures are. And there also has been an analysis of the provincial model, which is the GSN, which is the Grants for Student Needs. So that's been modeled as well, and to take a look at how those figures get calculated and what components they're founded on. That is also a very complex analysis. We've also looked at the First Nations with Schools Collective, which is a collective of about 8 First Nations schools with for First Nations with schools. So they have also been developing a funding model. So we've also done an analysis on the components of that particular funding model. And also we've been looking at ISC currently, ISC's interim funding formula, and understanding the basis of that, and observing they are in development, I would say, of recommended changes or adjustments to that interim funding model. I would say the biggest problem with that, and the biggest problem with some of the biggest challenges that I see in the funding formula development is having access to data, and that's a problem that's across, I would say, at least across Ontario for sure, that I know, is that there isn't enough data. There isn't a reliable data infrastructure, so that it really makes comparisons impossible, because we don't have the same data structure as what's going on in Ontario or across the country. So those are some of the challenges, and those are some of the things that are developing in the current ISC interim funding formula model. And just to finish off, I guess where everything is that there has been comparisons between the Deloitte model, the GSN, the First Nations with Schools collective funding formula, and the ISC interim funding formula as to which components, how they compare. And that's kind of where we're currently at.
Great, thanks very much, Clint. Yeah, so a lot of great work going on with the funding task team in terms of just trying to, you know, again, get that survey or that landscape of First Nations education funding, which is a beast in itself, and we know it's piecemeal, and so really trying to understand all these different parts is something that's been a lot of great work done by the funding task team. Now turning it over both to Riva Bomberry, who is our language and culture lead, as well as Amber Squire, our language and culture specialist, to touch on the Ongwehoi advisory group. So ladies, over to you both.
Heather and Scanos Fuego. It's good to be here this morning and be part of a good discussion. It's awesome to hear the collaboration and input and ideas and questions and thoughts that are valuable or invaluable to going forward. I'm really proud and pleased to be part of the team with the task force. It's certainly my job task is enormous, but something that I've had a lifelong interest in terms of our language. So I'm proud and pleased to be able to be part of our team. So the OAG is a invaluable tool for us to incorporate into the overall task and recommendations of the task force. The OAG enables us to receive guidance and input from community members who have the expertise and the experience, etc., in the area of language and culture going forward with any recommendations that we put to the community. The OAG works in collaboration with the task force and the Education Coordination Office in order to provide valuable input into the work that is being completed. Also, our OAG's task is to plan and execute community engagement to ensure that Ongwe principles are applicable to all of the recommendations that we're going to put forward to the community. Just generally speaking, they provide oversight to the work that we do to ensure that language is a key component of the work that we do. I guess just in response to Wendy's question in regards to, what is different about, the studies that have been done in the past and what we're doing today. One of the things that just being involved with the coordination office since September, the key area that I feel that has been overlooked, I guess, for lack of a better word, is the area of language. And so I'm pleased to be able to ensure that as we go forward, that language will be a key component of everything we do. It's invaluable, it's powerful, it's who we are. I believe we're obligated to ensure that language, whether it be Gayokono, Ganyegeha, etc., is woven throughout the work that we do, so that our people are being, our Six Nations people are being, can see themselves in the education system. And that's a key component to success for our students in the education system, is being able to see themselves in the studies that they're learning about in the education system. I also noticed that Nathan Wright has a comment in the chat there regarding education capacity gaps. I think what I'm finding, I guess, in terms of the studies we've done so far, is that these studies will definitely identify numerous gaps that are in our current education system. And they're powerful tools for us to be able to know, understand, and utilize as a bargaining tool going forward in order for us to close the gaps in the education system. The other comment that I want to make that I think is important is Helen mentioned the 6-week community engagement that is happening in the area of health, et cetera, et cetera. I think we need to really pay heed to that because, again, one of the areas of concern that I have in terms of the work of the task force and my particular role and specifically is that we can identify structures, we can identify personnel, we can identify salaries. We can do a lot of work around what is needed. But what I find that we're overlooking, that's a major gap in our community, in general, in education specifically, is that we don't have the speaker capacity in our community currently in order to even fill those structures or fill those positions. So I think one of the things that we need to really consider is how are we going to build that capacity in our community, and is that part of our role? Because if you don't have the fluent speakers in our community to carry on the language or even teach it in the education system, we're going to have vacant buildings. So that's a priority I feel we need to really focus on, is how do we build our language capacity in a community so that down the road, you know, we have the speakers in order to fulfill those responsibilities. And I guess that's my thought right today is, yes, the government is wanting to transfer education, but we need to be vigilant in that we're not going to fit into their time frame. And you know, when I talk about building capacity for language speakers, you can't do that in a 6-week course. You can't do that in a 1-year course. Minimally, what we're finding is that it takes a 3-year program immersed in the language with thousands and thousands of hours to you know, establish language acquisition at a even at an intermediate level. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that we have to be cautious of. And one of the things is that we need to develop our own time frame that's relevant for us, and that's going to allow us to be successful going forward with the task force. And some of the memberships that we have on the OAG, community memberships, is very, very, I'm very proud, and I think overall for the task force, the core team, the coordination office staff, and our OAG membership is, I can't say enough of how powerful a group that we have established and that's participating in this process. So just to name a few membership from the community, just to give you an idea of who's involved in our OAG and providing us input. Dr. Rick Montour, Nance Hill, Frank Miller, Karen Sandy, and Minetta McNaughton. And that it's not closed to those individuals. We are open to other community members who may want to participate as well. So I'm going to send it over to Amber. Amber, did you want to provide any more information?
Yes, Nyawa Reba. Frank Miller, too, is our newest member of the Hongwe Advisory Group, or OAG. And I'm just going to speak a little bit more onto the OAG. So the OAG's intent is to look at all the work through a language and culture focused lens. We have experts that present to the OAG. We also have present our own research, and we just focus on language and culture. An example is Dr. Rick Hill presented on a series on his secondary school report, and we were able to collaborate and make suggestions. Some things that were brought up was language teachers and teaching our own history, and how we would need specific training for those teachers for those topics. other suggestions that the OAG made was to have a world-class lacrosse and running training. We also made the suggestion to have a language and culture co-op with the other Ungwehongwene territories. And the OAG, the task force, and Rick, Dr. Rick Hill, we just had a beautiful talk about how the secondary school could create unity and strength within our own community. And it was just really nice. It was really nice to think about that. And if we could have a language and culture co-op in other territories, how that would just expand unity and strength, you know, with all of the Ongwehongwe territories. Yeah, so we were just reflecting on how we thought it was like Guyana Lake Goa or the Great Lost. So yeah, it was really nice. They were a really good group. Yawa again for everybody. Ona.
Oh, Amber, sorry, Heather.
Right, Nyama to you, Riva and Amber, and yeah, as you can hear really strongly in both of their statements, right? Grounded in language and culture, I think is essential to our work. And you know, reaching back to in the chat here to Councilor Wright's comments, right? No sense in thinking about the world-class education system if it's not in our own language. And I think that's so pointedly stated, right? Absolutely, we agree. And you know, we've been talking a lot about how sometimes folks there's this lumping together of language and culture as if they are one and the same, and what the work of Riva and Amber is really narrowing in on language specifically, and language acquisition, and how do we grow that base, right? And what's it going to take? What kind of dedication is that going to take of the community to be able to do so? Great. So just by way of kind of wrapping things up and closing up here, because I know we've been on for a while and we appreciate the time. Insights from our online engagement platform, as I shared earlier in response to Councilor Miller's question about community engagement, right? We have moved on to this online engagement platform by purchasing a license to Othello. And we invite folks to head over to sixnations.othello.net. You can get there by just going to our regular website as well. There's a link where you click on get involved, and you can it'll take you to Othello. And as you can see, and this should be of no surprise given you know, what we've been talking about so far, we have seen a drop in community engagement over the summer, and you know, we're strategizing around how do we get that back. How do we re-engage with folks? You know, and we know that folks are on Zoom. You know, we speak with folks who are on the line here who say that they're on Zoom for 6 hours a day, and probably going on to Othello for some more screen time isn't necessarily what folks want to do. So thinking about how can we be strategic around community engagement going forward. As you can see in the pie chart to the right of your screen, areas of great interest to the community include central coordination, so a system, right, that centrally kind of coordinates all of our different education entities, defining student success, information management and technology, as well as special education, but really a large interest in what does that central coordination look like. There's a lot of interest there. In terms of discussing that further. Feedback received. So as shared earlier, some of this information or draft form of recommendations have been on Othello for some time, and have gone through various kind of versions or phases of feedback. And you know, this is kind of high level, just what we'll share. Is for in terms of thinking about central coordination and staffing, right? Again, needing to ensure that culture and language is involved there, that professional development in culture and language is something that is prioritized, in addition to mental health support. So how do we think about not only physical health in school, but further about mental health? And we know some of this work is already going on in our schools. Also, in addition, comparable teacher salaries, human resources, supports, and services. Also in this first phase of feedback from information management technology, some things that we heard back from folks is to think about if we were to have some kind of centralized student information system where you're able to input information about students that kind of travels almost as a portfolio with them during their time, is to think about assessment, right? And how does assessment how is that in conversation with that type of system? Jumping down here to special education. And this is something that gets me really excited from a background of being a special education teacher is what is the role of culture, right, and language when thinking about special education? Because something that we have learned from our research that has become an issue is if students are learning language, right, but they have an aide or a teacher assistant who does not speak the language, it becomes this question of, or is that student going to have their accommodations, delivered for them in English or in the language? So they're losing out on one or the other, right? Because if they're going to just continue to be instructed in the language without accommodation because that person providing accommodations can't speak the language, then what is the access there? Vice versa, if the person is then helping and providing accommodations in English, what kind of impact does that have on language learning and language acquisition, right? So there's a really, really interesting conversation going on here about special education and about language. And also, from a cultural standpoint, right? Seeing students, with diverse needs, right? Not as students who should be separated, from the classroom, but from more of an inclusion standpoint, which is something we've been doing a lot of research and work on. In addition to having more parental and guardian and caregiver incorporated into those recommendations. And lastly, when defining student success, and awareness that we know that we can't simply just pull on Ontario standards and say, this is what we're going to be operating from. We need to have our own measures of student success when thinking about how quote unquote typically developing students are. And we can quote researchers such as Vygotsky and Piaget here, but what is it from a Haudenosaunee, from a Ongwehongwe standpoint? What do we know, in terms of child development, and how does that work its way into how we define student success from our standpoint? I think so. I'm getting as excited as I say this because this is my wheelhouse here, is thinking specifically, from these standpoints of special education and student success from a cultural lens. I think something really, really important work going on. And lastly, projected timeline. So, going forward, we are thinking, as Councilor Johnson was pointing out earlier, in terms of, is there opportunity for simultaneity to exist? Thinking about early years, thinking about post-secondary, thinking about trades, all in being in conversation with K through 12, which is what we're talking about right now. So, we have, had discussions at the core team in terms of looking at a more lifelong learning strategy, right? Inclusive of early years, inclusive of post-secondary and trades and adult language as well. In addition to the challenges that we're facing with community engagement, and how we're really putting that emphasis on co-creation with community. So a kind of updated or projected timeline for the full lifelong learning strategy to be presented to community would be June of the year of 2023. And that is all from me. I know there may be some questions, specifically about the timeline and rationale for that, and happy to speak to that further. But Chief Hill, turning it back over to you. I'm going to stop sharing screen here and turn the floor back over to you.
Okay, now so much, Heather, for such a thorough, detailed update this morning. I do want to acknowledge comment in the chat again for the timeline. And Victoria Gray from the Turtle Island News had punched and it cut out 2022 or 2023, just to confirm. 2023, thank you for that. And also just want to look to any further questions or comments for Heather or any of the team members on the line. Okay, that being said, I seeing no hands being raised at this time. Oh, I do see actually Wendy has her hand raised. Wendy?
And just quickly, I just want to say that I really appreciate your presentation style, Heather, and the information. I just, it very well done. Thanks.
Right. Well, thank you very much. And, always, come to this council and body of folks here on the line here with so much respect and for all it is that you do in the community. And we know that we also had the community tuning in via Facebook Live also. And so we hope more folks want to engage and get involved in the work of the Lifelong Learning Task Force. As was mentioned earlier, we're all involved. And so whatever experiences you had with education or going forward, we want to hear that. We want to sit down with you, maybe not in person right now, but and hear more about that and hear your input. So, again, Nyawa, thank you so much for the invitation, for the time. I know we were on here for a good amount of time, and yeah, Nyawa, and thank you to you all for listening and for your questions.
Perfect. Thank you so much again, Heather. Looking forward, what I'll ask for at this time is just a motion from council to accept the update as information. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Michelle, seconder. Second by Sherry. Oh, okay, thank you so much. Any further questions or comments? Okay, seeing or hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. Again, Heather, and to all on the line, again, very good job this morning in presenting your update. Really appreciate the thorough discussion. It was a great discussion, and really want to just also commend all the work from your team on the Lifelong Learning Task Force. I know there's so much happening within community, but there's so much progress being made as well. So I just want to say nyawa for that, and looking forward to continuing this important work along each of your sides. So appreciate it. I hope you all have a great day, and please stay safe.
Great, thank you. Be well, everyone.
Yeah. Okay, council, we do have an agenda, a few more items on that agenda that rather. So I'm going to look to the CAP team. I know we are scheduled, I know I have to be done by at least 1 o'clock. There's a few more items. So I know we did obviously want to give the appropriate time to have these discussions. So that being said, Lonnie maybe Taylor. My apologies, Taylor. If I believe you'll be taking the lead on these discussions.
Yeah.
Lonnie was?
Yeah.
Oh, there's Lonnie. Okay, my apologies. Sorry, I seen 2 Robins. So
Yeah,
my
I'm
apologies.
one of the Robins.
Okay, no problem. Appreciate that. So with that being said, then I will pass it right over to yourself, Lonnie, to introduce the next agenda items, and then we will go into further discussions.
Okay. So are we on?
Oh, sorry, Lonnie, to interrupt, but we're having some difficulty hearing you. Not sure if it's on your end or if you can turn up your volume. Okay, maybe try now. It sounds a little bit better.
How is that? Can you hear me now?
Not good.
It's still a little low.
Okay. Okay. Well, let's Taylor take it away.
Okay, my apologies, Lonnie. We're still having difficulty hearing. Sorry, I'll just give Lonnie a minute just to shift over. Looks like he may be going to another part of the office.
He's gonna try to fix his problems, but he said for me to go ahead.
Okay,
I know he's on a laptop right now. His computer is also not having microphone issues, so hopefully he can get it fixed. Sorry, I think the first one was the broccolini, if I'm not mistaken.
yes, you're correct.
Okay, so I don't know if everyone knows, but there is a proposed Amazon warehouse going in Cambridge. Broccolini Real Estate are the ones who are putting it in. We found out about it and we reached out in regards to consultation. Broccolini initially refused to meet with us. They said they did not need to meet with us. Robin sent another email where she had to CC the minister, and then the minister told Broccolini that in fact it's not true, that they do have to meet with us. So we had an initial meeting with Broccolini. We wouldn't call it consultation. They gave very vague answers. They looked very disinterested through the whole meeting. They had hired a consultant to facilitate the meeting, and 2 Broccolini members were there. We also asked for a follow-up meeting. They refused to commit on that because they couldn't give answers to some of the questions we had about environmental concerns, potential accommodation. We also asked for several documents, and we didn't, not only in that meeting, but we've sent several follow-up emails, and we haven't received any of the environmental documents. We did receive the archaeology, which was cleared as it was considered, as it was deemed historical. We weren't consulted on that either. So I see there's a question. I don't know if you want to go to the question now.
The audio is not working.
Okay.
Never mind. It's okay. I don't have any.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Helen. Back over to you, Taylor.
So we also reached out to the Cambridge Planning. They said they would only meet with us if the minister was present, and then no meeting was ever set up because we were agreeable to that. There has been a community or like a group formed in Cambridge called the Blair Engaged. Their mandate basically is that they do not want this Amazon warehouse in their neighborhood for environmental reasons and whatnot. They have hired Donnelly Law to be their lawyer, and the Blair Engaged through Donnelly Law then reached out to got in contact with us. They're proposing submitting a judicial review, and they wanted to know what level of consultation we had with Broccolini, and we formulated a letter that said that it was not meaningful consultation and not up to any standards. And they have now, and then we, after several reviews, we sent the letter to the Blair Engaged group, and they have, I believe, published it in a newspaper. I'm not sure which one, sorry. I think somewhere in the Cambridge. And we've also sent several emails to Broccolini asking for any further meetings to discuss unaddressed concerns, and they have not responded to any of that. I guess that's the general overview of it.
Thank you, Taylor. Just looking to any further questions or comments on this specific item.
Mark?
Oh, I see Wendy.
Yeah, just a quick comment that I read the briefing note, the materials that were contained in the package. I'm just wondering if it would be helpful for you to send a letter, Mark, just to to engage in a strongly worded letter, sorry, going forward.
Yes, definitely can do that and connect with Lonnie and Taylor as well, just to further make everyone is well aware of the position here and when. So we can definitely do that as well.
Yeah, so she must have her information.
Oh,
on her
I do
paper.
hear Lonnie. It sounds like it is working. Sorry, Lonnie, did you fix your audio?
We're trying to do the best we can. Hi, this is Dawn LaForme.
Hey,
working,
Don.
Dawn.
Actually, we can hear you quite well now.
Okay.
Hi, Don. Sorry, I believe the issue's been rectified. We can hear you quite clearly.
She looks like she's
Oh, now she's broke.
she's froze.
Okay, I'm back.
Okay, so apologies as we are experiencing some technical difficulties. So to Taylor, looking to next steps, is there specifically on this item, or are we doing things all in one? How would you like to proceed?
Yeah, like.
Robin, do you have?
Actually, yes. So one of the things that I think is important, I think Wendy had an excellent point that the city of Cambridge particularly and the developer specifically have both been very non-communicative as far as their duty to consult. And I think that it would be very helpful if we drafted a letter to be sent to the City of Cambridge, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, because he is the one that actually signed the MZO, and to the developer, outlining the lack of consultation and that we have a constitutionally protected right and they need to consult with us. So I would be quite happy to draft the letter and forward it to Council or Chief Hill for review. But I think it's very important that it not just come from the CAP team. I think that it needs to come from the community.
Most definitely, and definitely will look to your assistance, Robin, with starting that letter. And then we can communicate. If you can just include my chief of staff, Tammy Martin, to coordinate, just how we could get that letter sent out as quickly as possible.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I just noticed that Nathan had said that it should have a comment about our strong oppositions to the MZO process. And I totally agree that it does need to state that, because it's a horrible process and there's no consultation that happens at all. And I think that Six Nations of the Grand River needs to speak out on it, because we need to ensure that these type of things, and they're happening more and more, these MZOs, that they are not used just because they can be.
Most definitely agree as well. So Robin, if we can get that letter out as quickly as possible. If we can look to your assistant to at least begin that first draft, and we'll look to any edits after that, and again, get it out quick.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, appreciate that, Robin. Taylor, I'm gonna check back in with Lonnie. Lonnie, can you hear us okay?
I can hear you. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, so that's a lot better. So
Okay.
I'll back over to you.
Okay.
Taylor, thank you. And Nyawa, she had did the broccolini, and so we'll look to the next items, Lonnie, as well.
Okay. So which one would that be now?
I got a question.
Oh, my apologies. Sorry, if we could just pause really quickly. Councilor Sherry Lynn has a question.
Yeah, regarding the Minister of Municipal Affairs who signed it. Well, let's send it higher up. Can we send one to Trudeau or who's his boss? There's got to be somebody
Ford.
else.
Doug Ford.
Doug Ford, and send one to Doug Ford.
Okay.
I
Most
like. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, so we'll CC all necessary keys, all necessary parties rather.
Sounds good.
Okay, thanks for that, Sherry Lynn. So Lonnie, the next piece was the Lake Erie connector.
Yes. So this, you know, it's becoming kind of urgent that we be involved in this project because of timelines. I know it was initially brought to the council as a CAP team request activity to be involved in the.
I can't hear, sorry.
My apologies. Sorry, Lonnie. You may have to. We're having issues hearing you again.
Okay. How about now? Can you hear me, or you want me to talk up? Okay.
There,
Out loud.
Okay, I guess I talk up loud. So,
Yeah,
all right.
maybe
So this initially came, you know, back a number of times now, and was led by the CAP team, bringing the request to do the engagement with the Lake Erie Connector project, and so it's becoming important now. Timelines that you know, a decision be made, otherwise would be left out. As I said in a briefing note, New Credit has signed on, and they're looking at being equity partners. And our suggestion, I don't know whether Matt Jameson's on, but that they completely take over the ACTEV Corporation, take over the consultation with respect to this project, engagement, if that's required, but at least, you know, coming to a term sheet can be brought back to council. And we, there is the capacity funding, you know, they've rejigged it so that, you know, it's not really stuck on 250,000, can be higher, whatever your needs are. So, and their ACTEV Corporation is the perfect body, in our opinion, to carry this on, because they've got experience in the past in getting in these kind of business arrangements, equity arrangements. So we're suggesting that because of the timelines, that be passed over to the corporation, and they carry it forward and report back to council in their usual fashion.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that, Lonnie. I do see Wendy has her hand up, and then maybe perhaps we can even touch base with Matt as well. Wendy?
Thanks. So correct me if I'm wrong, maybe I've got it mixed up, but this is the project that's come before us 3 times, maybe 4 times, and we've not made the resolution on it. We've not agreed to go forward, correct? So transferring it over to the corporation means that basically they do all the work, and it, because of the relationship between them and council, it'll come for final approval, but it's kind of taken out of our process and our hands, more or less, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So we're just taken out of the equation, more or less, but with.
Yeah, but they'll be through the corporation, yeah, right. The CAP team is out of it.
Yeah, I just for me, there were a lot of questions asked about it, and I've never had those questions answered in terms of the process. And, you know, I read the briefing note that we'll miss out, but I'm not sure what we're missing out on if it has greater impacts to the community. So that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah. Well, as I said, it's been the council now 3 or 4 times, and we've tried to highlight the benefits that would be received, like other equity positions we take in respect to Niagara reinforcement line and the ones with Samsung. This is in a similar vein. So those projects were, well, Samsung was a council project, but it was still led by Matt Jameson and the ECDEB department at the time. This would continue on in a similar vein where we're looking at becoming equity partners in a project. In all likelihood, will proceed. And and I think, in our opinion is because of these timelines and the hesitancy of council to approve it in the past, that the corporation could do the best job in carrying through with that investigation to see whether it's worthwhile to in fact enter into this endeavor with ITC. And so that's the proposal. Because we tried to answer all council questions. We thought we had. Apparently, there's might still be some outstanding issues that you're not completely satisfied with. In the interest of not losing this opportunity, we're saying, okay, let the corporation take it over, and they'll report back to council in the usual course on whether it's a worthwhile endeavor to engage in this in partnership with this company at all. So that's our proposal.
Mark, it's Hazel.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for that, Lonnie. Just before I'll go to Hazel, and then I just want to take a pause and maybe check in with Matt as well. Hazel?
Yeah, I know this has come to council, I don't know, 1 or 2 times. But I just want to move on that recommendation because I think the CAP team have already gave us a lot of information. And if Matt from MacDev is willing to take on this recommended task, then go for it. So I'm going to move on the recommendation. Thanks.
Okay, there is a motion on the floor, moved by Hazel to move on this recommendation. Is there a seconder? Second by Helen. Are there any further questions or comments? And maybe perhaps at this time I can take that pause and look to Matt to maybe provide any further additional comments as well.
Sure. Good morning, everybody. So I had sent a memo back in April to accompany Lonnie's memo, which was sort of a briefing on the whole project. And as part of that memo, I outlined some of the history of this project. And in fact, in 2015, when the Development Corporation was launched, the ITC Lake Erie Power Connector project was allocated to the Development Corporation at that time. Some of the challenges were that the project sort of fizzled, and the political powers that be didn't really give it much time and attention. But over the course of the last couple of years, the last year specifically, this current government's looking at how they can find ratepayer savings and initiate projects that can achieve that end. It's sort of reemerged as a potential project to add to the power system in Ontario. On top of that, the Canada Infrastructure Bank, I understand, has signaled an interest in stepping up to provide financing for the project. So there are a lot of things that are aligning to potentially get this project to the starting line. As Lonnie touched on, the project is advancing down its development cycle. I think that they're planning in the second quarter of 2022 to look towards a financial closing. And we either are going to look at potentially participating or not. And I think it's important for us, certainly for the Development Corporation, to look at this as an opportunity for the community to benefit. And in order to do that, we need to dig into the meat and potatoes of the deal. And the Development Corporation has, as the council knows, the structure to enter into a non-disclosure agreement, a term sheet negotiations. We do have a director and officer insurance here as a corporation, so we're not potentially putting ourselves in a liable position by negotiating these types of things. And so we, the Development Corporation, would like to have a look at this and uncover all the stones and see whether or not there's an opportunity for us to pursue as a community. And if there is, and we believe that there is, we'll bring it back to the council for further direction. If there's not, we'll be clear on that. But ultimately, I think it's important for us to do some digging on this to see what the benefits could be for the community, and then report back accordingly.
Okay, thanks, Matt, for providing those comments. I will look to any further additional comments or questions from council. I see Wendy has her hand up.
Thanks, Mark. And yeah, if I recall, Matt, you were actually originally part of the presentation when it first came to council on this. I mean, I could be wrong, but I thought you were already involved from the start of this. So for me, and I mean, we all have our different perspectives and our different opinions. I just feel that, you know, going from CAP now over to the corporation, we're simply passing over to another venue. It's going to come back for the same recommendation to go forward, to take the 250,000 from the law firm to do the consultation on this work. So I don't see what we're doing. There's already, you know, it was rejected. It's been rejected a few times. I'm not sure what new is going to come forward. And, you know, in terms of the questions that I've had every step of the way is from the get-go, I've asked that this be an open, and I'm glad to see that it is, because how do we get community input on this? Because we're talking about, you know, some bigger issues. So that was my only point, but I fail to see how what this is going to do. It's simply a process. Somebody else is going to bring the same thing forward. So, and no disrespect to you, Matt, but I know you've been involved from the beginning anyway, so.
Okay, thank you, Wendy, for your comments. I see Helen next has her hand up.
Yeah, well, the way I'm looking at it, it's been the council, this is the fourth time. Council couldn't make a decision or wouldn't make a decision. So what Matt is saying is he's gonna go out and gather more, because they wanted more information, they wanted it to be open, and it's open. So the way I see it, Matt's gonna go out and get all the information he can, and hopefully that answers council's questions. So we seem to be at a stalemate with Lands Resource on this issue, and I think we need to move forward. So that's why I'm agreeing to send it over to the ECDEV, because maybe they can do the work that council wants. Because this can't keep coming back. And Matt's right, we're either gonna do it or we're not. They can't keep coming back to council every month. And like I said, so far council hasn't been able to make a decision because some councillors want more information, some councillors want this, some councillors want that. And as far as I'm concerned, Lonnie's done what he's supposed to do. One of the biggest issues was having it in an open meeting, and that's what we're doing today. So the money, and Wendy commented about the community having input. Well, that's what the engagement process is for the community to have input. And that's what the $250,000 would cover, is the engagement process to the community. At least that's my understanding. So yeah, we need to get this going, and if we're not going to do it, we're not going to do it, but it can't keep coming back to council. You know, we need to deal with it and get it over with. So I agree. That's why I agreed to sending it to ECDEV.
Okay, thank you, Helen rather, sorry, for also your comments. I do see a couple hands raised. I'll first start with Robin and then over to Matt. Robin, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mark. So I want to stress, and this is the thing that I keep coming back to, is that the CAP team and the DevCorps would not keep bringing this back if it weren't a good deal. We would not be insisting on you bringing it to you if we didn't feel that this was going to eventually be a benefit for the community. And what we need right now is to be able to do that due diligence. We need to be able to say, okay, this is what's involved. And of course, everything always has to come back to council. We can't make decisions without council. So obviously it's going to come back to council. But at the end of the day, Lonnie has been in his position for years now, and we, as the CAP team and the DevCorps, would not keep bringing this back if it wasn't a really good deal for the community. This project represents a lot of income coming into the community. As Lonnie said, it's very similar to your Samsung projects, some of the other projects that are bringing a revenue into the community. So that's why we keep bringing it back, because we need to be able to look at it closely, and that's DevCorps has the experience to do that. So that's why we're recommending that DevCorps take it on at this point, so that he can dig into the dirt and say, okay, here's what we found. This is what is, these are the pros, these are the cons. This is ultimately what we're recommending. And, council can still turn it down at that point, but we need to be able to go to our community and say, yes, we looked into it. Yes, we know this is the pros, this is the cons, this is what's going to happen. You talk about transparency all the time, and yet you won't allow this project to even get off of the table. And I think that that's a problem. So I know for myself, the work that the CAP team does is for the benefit of this community. And we would not keep bringing it back and bringing it back and bringing it back if we didn't feel that it could potentially be a significant revenue stream for the community. And I don't know how you could look at that as not a good deal.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Robin, for your comments. I know obviously you can sense the passion on this as you were repetitive on a couple of your points. Don't want to also, we know and understand what the CAP team does, and definitely don't want to be seen as, really, demeaning or anything in a sense of any members of the CAP team. We appreciate the work that each of you all do. I think there's more issues in relation to what the concerns that have been raised, and this is all, regardless of which, it's conversations that need to happen. It's conversations that need to be in open sessions. It's conversations that need to make sure that community is involved, and I think that's exactly what we're trying to do. But nonetheless, agree with you, Robin. You can sense exactly with what you're saying. And so, really want to, get that message across as well. As, there's no disrespect. In fact, we are looking to the ways on how we can even have, a more closer and better working relationship with all of our staff and employees on CAP and so forth, DevCorp, etc. And so, that this is definitely a time for this conversation, and we want to be able to move forward in this way. So appreciate your comments. I see a number of hands being raised. First begin with Matt, and then over to Phil, and then I have Wendy up after that. Matt, you have the floor.
Thanks, Chief. So just circling back on, I think it was Wendy's comment around coming back for the capacity funding. That's not the intent. If the Development Corporation has the lead on this file, we will enter into capacity funding agreement. And if we need more, we will negotiate that with ITC. We won't come back to the council until we have a term sheet in hand with due diligence done, so we can best explain what the impacts are of the project and what the benefits will be. In order for us to dig into that, though, we do have to secure that capacity funding agreement so we can hire experts, so we can really do a deep dive into what the impacts are of the project. And at that time, when the term sheet comes back, we'll have a better handle on what the community benefits will be, whether it's through royalty payments or through equity ownership, and what that looks like. And I'll be able to give you a financial forecast of what that means for the community in the long run. At a minimum, we know that it's modeled at a 35-year asset life. These types of assets do survive for up to 100 years with proper maintenance. So even if you were to take a base number of $1 million, and I'm not saying that's the number, if it's a base number of $1 million over the next 35 years, that's $35 million that the community could stand to benefit from a project. So to me, that would necessitate some time and attention for the Development Corporation to dig into this. And we would be the counterparty to a non-disclosure agreement and a counterparty to the capacity funding agreement. And we would handle that accordingly.
Okay, thanks, Matt, for that. I do have Phil next up, and then Wendy, and also Sherry Lynn. Phil, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Chief. I guess I'm just so confused here as to what the issue is. I mean, you know, it's been explained. This project's been in the community now for, I don't know, about 5-6 years, and the community's been informed of it an awful lot of times along the ways. As Matt pointed out, it's had its high and lows until there's the opportunity now with possible savings. And with the climate change initiatives and so on that are going on around the world here, this is a good thing for Ontario to try and look into it. And there's an opportunity. The Development Corporation, like, you got to crunch numbers on this. They've got the expertise. The CAP team doesn't. You know, we'd have to engage them anyways. And with their knowledge base, they can do the due diligence, and it's just a matter at that time engaging the community and reporting to this council, a yay or nay. That's the straight end of all of this. So I really don't. I guess I failed to see what the complications are. I guess that's just my comment to this, because it's not a done deal by any case. It's just a matter of give them the chance to do the due diligence and report whether it's worth getting into or not. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Phil, for your comments as well. I have a couple speakers again still. Next up is Wendy, and then I'll shift over to Sherry Lynn. Wendy, you have the floor.
Thanks, Mark. You know, every time this comes to the table, it gets into personal, it gets into, well, I don't know why you don't understand it. Well, I don't know, it's a good deal. And I've heard the term good deal so many times associated with this. You know, it's not personal, as you said, Mark. It's not against any people. It's not against any groups. But, you know, and I don't appreciate the lecture from staff of, I don't know why you don't understand this. I don't know why you don't get it. It's a good deal. You know, there's a definite difference of opinion on the good deal, you know, and all I have to do is give the example of Mackenzie Meadows and that great deal. We have a major difference of opinion with some councillors and community on the definition of good deal. So, you know, it's our prerogative as councillors to agree or not agree, to look at the information, to interpret it, and to give our perspective and our opinion and our decision as individual councillors in this process. And would ask that that be respected as well for us doing our due diligence and our own perspective on this. You know, it's a concern to me that coming to council, you know, Matt being part of the process, and sorry to keep utilizing your name, Matt, but you've been a part of the process when it originally came forward as a good deal. So now going back to that table, back to the corporation, it's going back with that opinion, that perspective, that it's a good deal. So when it's going to be reviewed, it's going to be reviewed in that same light. You know, if it was going through for that objective opinion to see maybe there's some pieces of it that's not so great, where do we get that in? Because everybody's already on board that this is a good deal and we have to do it and we should go forward with it because it's going to make a lot of money to the community. So that's the way that it's being sold to me, and I disagree with it. With the information that I've read, with the information that I've reviewed, I disagree. So, and I've explained the questions that I've had. I've explained those in depth in other in-camera meetings several times. So if you're not understanding my questions or that information, then I guess we're at a bit of a stalemate. But, you know, there's got to be some respectful dialogue. If people disagree, that's our position to do that as elected council. So that's why we're here moving forward. So I don't know what the path is forward. I don't know what that dialogue is. I'm happy to have that type of discussion, but not to be scolded because I disagree that it's such a great deal for the community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Wendy, for your comments as well. I want to shift over now at this point to Councilor Sherry Lynn.
A lot has been said already. I just wanted to make sure that, again, yes, this has been brought 4 times, but 3 times of it, has been an in camera, and a lot of the councilors wanted it to be open, and finally it is open, and it's good to see, because again, the community needs to know. So, and again, a lot of the stuff has been said, so I just wanted to make sure that, again, why it isn't open finally? That's why, because the community deserves to know.
Okay, thank you, Sherry Lynn, for your comments as well. Are there any further questions or comments? Again, there is a motion on the floor to accept the recommendation. It's been moved by Councilor Hazel, seconded by Councilor Helen. And at this point, we are engaged in further questions or comments. So looking to any further questions and comments from anyone on the line.
Mark, I have a comment. It's Hazel.
Sure. The floor is
Yeah,
yours.
Yeah, I just want to make the comment that the presentations that have already occurred to council, yes, they were in camera. However, it's not in camera now. And this is just another task or a program that's been worked upon within land research. And it was so much not in agreement. It had to do with the amount of money that they wanted to offer for the 250 amount, thinking that that was not enough. And they've made it quite clear that that could increase if need be. I think for Matt to take it on, and he's quite willing. I fail to see, like, this is nowhere near any personal matter for anybody. It's a business decision. And I made the recommendation based on a business decision because it's not making a choice of whether you're going to do it. They're looking for more information to provide to us. So therefore, that's my decision. And I'm going to make that recommendation to pass the recommendation.
Okay, thank you, Hazel, for your comments. Again, do recognize your motion as you as the mover and Helen as a seconder, and we are still engaged in questions and comments at this point. I have Wendy who has her hand raised, and then also Helen. Wendy, you have the floor.
In terms of going forward, talking about coming into open, the subject is in open, and we're talking about whether or not to transfer it over to DevCorp, but the actual matter is not being discussed in full with the particulars of what the project is and what the stalemate is. So is it possible to have this item in an open council, in a general council session or some special meeting, so that it is open and people have the full understanding of what this project is, and then make the decision if it's going to further consultation? That's one. And the second piece to that is, if this motion goes over to DevCorp, is it being interpreted that we are going ahead with the consultation piece and taking on the 250,000 to do that consultation? Is that what this motion is meant to be?
Okay, thanks for that, Wendy. I know you do have a couple questions. I will look to the mover and seconder on the interpretation of their motion. And just before then, I do have a list of speakers, so we'll get back to that response. But I have Helen next in line, and I also see Taylor has her hand up as well. Helen, you have the floor.
Well, my interpretation of my motion, because I don't know if I moved or seconded it, but I did something, is that it's going to go over to the DevCorp, and they're going to do all the investigating work and do all the stuff that needs to be done that council wanted done before. And Hazel's right. The majority, and I was wrong when I said council didn't approve it or couldn't approve it. Council did vote on it, and the 3 or 4 times it came back, the vote was always no, because some of the people wanted more money than what Lonnie was offering, as well as having it open to the community. So if it comes down to wanting more money, then my understanding is Matt's gonna go and do whatever he's got to do, and if we can get more if we get more money, he's gonna get more money. That was the only 2 issues that I see, but it's very difficult, and I agree with Wendy in a way, because it's very difficult for us sitting here in an open meeting to tell the community what happened the 4 times it came here, because we can't, because it was in camera. So we can't tell, I can't sit here and tell the community what happened those 4 meetings, because it was in camera. So and this is only my understanding of those 4 meetings, was because they wanted more money for the capacity, which is, they wanted more than 250,000. And they wanted it to be in an open meeting for the community to hear about it. So if there was more issues discussed in an in-camera meeting, I don't recall what they were, but I don't see any reason why we can't just transfer it over to Matt. He's going to do all that extra work that the council wanted, the 4 meetings we had. I'm assuming he's going to do all that extra work. And we got to get this going. So we can't make a decision to go ahead with it until Matt comes back with whatever it is he's finding out. And it's information gathering. It's deciding what we're going to do. It's negotiating whatever it is you got to negotiate, bring it to council, and then council makes a final decision. So it's not going to go forward unless council chooses to vote yes to the project. And that's all from my perspective from the resolution, is that's all we're doing, is we're just moving it over to under Matt, and he's going to bring all the information back to us, and then we're going to make a decision, yes or no. And to me, that's going to be the end of this whole thing, whether we say yes or whether we say no. So that's why I voted to go ahead with it. We got to move forward. We either got to stop it or go. This can't keep coming back to us, because we have to make some kind of, because that project is going ahead anyway, whether we agree with it or not. So we're not going to stop just because First Nations Council don't agree with it. It's going to go forward anyway. I think it's already started. But yeah, that's my reason I'm supporting this resolution, because all it's saying is it's turning over to Matt to do what he's got to do, and then bring everything back to council.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Helen, for your comments as well. I do have a couple hands being raised. Again, I recognize Taylor, who has the floor next, and also recognizing Councilor Nathan after Taylor. Taylor, you have the floor.
Thank you. I just wanted to say, when Matt does his due diligence, he's going to be hiring independent experts such as lawyers and financial advisors, and their job is to objectively review it. They won't be going in with a set formed opinion. They'll be objectively reviewing it and then coming back with what their review from their knowledge and expertise has put forward. I also wanted, I know both Wendy and Nathan have voiced having it discussed and open. Is that, in your idea, is that including the people from Lake Erie connected to discuss the project, or just a discussion from the people on the call now?
Okay, thanks, Taylor. We'll look to response to your question as well, and perhaps Nathan can include that in his comments as well. So Nathan, you have the floor.
Yeah, thanks, Chief, and good discussion on this. And this is kind of where I was hoping we would land on the first discussion, especially being an open. But just to go to Taylor's question, was one of the areas I think would benefit even me. And I think it was either Lonnie or Phil kind of mentioned the history of this project being beyond this council. That's a piece of information I wasn't aware of, and I didn't pick it up in the earlier presentations that occurred in camera. So I think it would be a benefit if there was a presentation, not necessarily from the proponent yet, but from us, that details the history of the project and goes into the purpose and intent. Because I think a lot of the councilors are right. This is going ahead with or without us, but we need to determine whether or not it's in our best interest to participate. And just clarification, my opposition earlier on wasn't in relation to the 250 being not enough. If you recall, I asked for a high-level work plan on what the due diligence is going to look like. Does it have the environmental component? What's the impacts to the land? What's the impacts, on the right side, for those lawyers out there? And kind of having that plan in place to ensure that due diligence has all the aspects. And the big one was engagement. I made the comment that if we were going to do engagement differently, we can spend $250K just on engagement alone without the environmental impact. So that's what I was looking at. And if we can go get more, well, that should be based on a logical work plan that we have in this. So that's still something I would like to see if we were going to go forward with this, is what due diligence is being occurred, and what are the resources attached to it. Environmental concerns alone, again, you can probably spend $250K on just environmental concerns and mediating those. So I'm not against the premise of this particular project. What I think it would be beneficial, and I know we've had presentation after presentation to council, but it is that that community presentation that kind of walks us through the project, what the history is, and what we're going to do by way of due diligence. If we kind of construct it in that manner, I think it would be helpful, back to Taylor's question. But again, what we have in front of us, which I don't disagree with, is just a decision to move it over to Deptford. And again, the question still lies in terms of what's the history on the project, what's the history that I don't know, because I'm hearing this extended beyond our particular council. And how is the community going to be engaged? That's another question. And then what's the due diligence? What's that work plan on the due diligence? I think if we looked at it from that standpoint, a lot of my concerns would be addressed and a lot of my questions would be addressed. And at the same time, community would be fully informed on what it is we're doing. So that's kind of where I'm at. And I just wanted to spend a few minutes just to kind of walk you through what's going on in my head, which sometimes can be challenging. So appreciate that, and look forward to further discussion on it.
Mark, can I give my response to Taylor's question?
Okay, thank you, Nathan, for your comments. Yeah, I will go to Wendy for your response, and then I'll shift over to Robin and Council. I think we've went around the table quite a few times on this issue, so I will look to the vote on this motion. It's been moved and seconded, and we'll go from there. Wendy, you have the floor, then over to Robin.
Thanks, and I appreciate Helen's explanation as the seconder of what the motion is. I'm not sure what the mover interpretation is, but if it means going over to or development court and that they're going to do this due diligence work, it does not mean that we're signing an MOU or signing an agreement to engage with the 250,000 at this point. If it's simply for them to look at this, re-examine and present it back, answering all the questions and comments that we made prior, then I'm okay with that. I'm fine with that. But, as to Nathan's point about the funding, it's not, it was the background to the funding, because that's the standard rate. And it was, we just take it. If we need more, we can figure that out, but just take it. So it was that unilateral, that's the price tag. That's just what what you get if you do this work. And a community that has 1/60 the population of us gets the same amount that we get here, just because that is the rate. So I was having difficulty with those pieces. And as Nathan said, with the plan forward, how we're going to do that, there's a number of pieces going to it. And I want to see the risk analysis. I want to see the pros and cons. And I think that's fair for community to see that as well. So if that's what's going to happen, I'm good with that. And to have that disclosure to community, I think that's fantastic. Thank you.
Mark, it's Hazel.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Wendy, for your comments as well. I have Robin and you next. But just before Robin, just would like to go to Hazel before I go to you as the mover. Hazel?
Yes, I just want to make the comment that I made the motion that we support the recommendation because, yes, Matt is going to take the project and bring back to council his findings before council can make a decision. That was my understanding. There will be more. I thought originally the concern was that the community was never present during these in-camera meetings. So when Matt brings it back, it's going to be an open session and the community is going to hear the story and council will make a decision. So it's just a matter of transferring what it is now over to ECDEV, who will take the responsibility of bringing back all the info that is being asked for. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Hazel, for that and your comments as well. Robin.
Thank you, Mark. I just want to say two things. One is the consultation funding agreement that we asked be signed previously. We were getting the same amount as a community smaller than us because the costs are going to be the same. You still have to hire a lawyer, you still have to hire an accountant. So those costs are basically all the same. And, you know, the whole community consultation process is going to be, Matt did a great job with community consultation when he did the Oneida battery project. And I can't imagine that he would lower his standards for this project. He would be equally as diligent. As far as Nathan's concern about the environmental assessment, that is a requirement of the proponent to do that, but not until the project has been approved. So that is something that will be done, and we will have input into that as well. So I just wanted to clarify those 3 points. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Robin. Okay, council, we have a mover and seconder. We've had thorough discussion on this motion. It's been clearly laid out in terms of interpretation of the motion and what that means. I'm now going to call for a vote. So that being said, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Favor.
If you clearly raise your hands or say favor.
Favor.
Any opposed? Okay, seeing or hearing none, the motion is carried. Is there a motion to waive second reading?
I move to move second reading.
Moved by Hazel, second by Helen. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. Okay, council, or Lonnie's rather, I will look to you. Is there anything further on your end that you need of council?
Not on this particular project, no. This issue, no.
Okay, okay, so then let's move on to the next.
Okay. I think the last one is the SAP team activity for the last month. So we have the step for information where we have itemized all the activities that council, I think put in the drop boxes. I think it's the way it was done the last time. So if you have any questions, we're happy to answer them.
Okay, thanks for that. Lonnie, I just want to look to council if there's any questions or comments in relation to the activities of the CAP team.
Mark,
Yes, I see a couple of hands raised. I'll first begin with Wendy, then over to Sherry Lynn.
yeah, just my only comment on it. I mean, thank you for the list. The particulars I don't think we had in the Dropbox, but in terms of the work with the city of Brantford, I'm not sure if it would be workable to include the Survivor Secretariat or maybe the Executive Lead, just if there's any overlap or there's any discussion regarding the work that's being done there in Brantford, because there may be some things, and I think it would be good to have that inclusion.
Most definitely agree with that piece as well. I believe even Kim has had conversations, so agree 100% with that, with those comments. Sherry Lynn.
I guess mine is in the sense of, are you getting, are they meeting you with respect? Like, are you getting answers? Because I'm reading a lot of stuff in the paper, and come to find out they haven't even did consultation with Six Nations. So does it need to go more political? Like, especially Brantford? Because I think we're at a standstill, and I think Brantford's doing whatever. And I think we need to push a little harder. That's what I've been seeing. What's your thoughts?
Yes, and thanks for bringing that forward as well, Sherry Lynn. We had a meeting, myself and Tammy met with Tanya Hill-Montour last week, I believe, for some time to go over those challenges that she's been having with Brantford, the city of Brantford, and so forth. I believe we also have an upcoming meeting regarding Mohawk Lake with the mayor Davis, as well as Mayor Bailey in the county. As we've seen, there's huge development happening in the county. You go and drive anywhere from Paris to so forth, you'll see the amount of development happening in those areas. But again, I think still in relation to the relationship itself politically, yes, it has gone. It actually is at our level at this point because of what's happening on the front lines, more or less to say. So again, I do appreciate you bringing that forward, Sherilyn, because I know that what happens on the front lines isn't exactly the same that's being said at the political level. And that's why it's so important, I feel, to always have the conversations with our frontline workers to really grasp what is actually occurring and what is actually happening, because that isn't always portrayed when we speak politically to our neighboring communities. And so it's always good to have, the areas of concern and the issues that need to be addressed politically. And so that's something that is a goal of the chief's office, to have that dialogue with Mayor Davis and Bailey and so forth, to start to address these concerns, because I know, just speaking in our meeting with Tanya, there's a growing list of areas of concerns that need addressed politically. Robin, and then I have a list of speakers. Robin, and then Phil.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that I did not put anything on this CAP team discussions that did not involve the whole CAP team. So there is, Tanya has specific meetings separately that do not include the CAP team. They include the archaeology component. So that's why I did not include any of that on this list. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay, thank you for that, Robin. Phil.
Okay, this goes to the comments for Sherry Lynn brought it up. Thank you so much, and thank you for your comments, Chief Phil. Yes, please get politically involved as council. We need you out on the front lines and doing things, because I know that you've got internal issues and the COVID's changed things, but we need the political push here, and if we need it now more than ever, because as Sherry Lynn pointed out, we need more than lip service on this. There's legal duties to consult. We gotta move forward on these things, and the CAP team can only push the ball up the hill so far, and then we need political clout with you guys. So please get involved. Yes, thank you.
Okay, appreciate your comments as well, Phil. So we'll look to again further, exactly aligning ourselves as CAP and council so that we're able to do exactly what needs to be done in making sure that these proponents and so forth, and as well as our neighboring communities are being held accountable to what is legally obligated. Nathan, I have Nathan and then Helen.
Yeah, thanks, Chief. And in short comment, just supporting what you and Sherry Lynn were saying, as well as Phil. One of the issues that really kind of I see coming down the pipe is having more and more of an influence and an impact on Six Nations is the MZO process. Raised it again earlier, and Robin commented on it, but I think that's something we should put on our agenda as a priority, because that gives the province roughshod over what they perceive as lands and reserved for Indians and all that blah 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 coming out of government. So if there was another issue I was going to put on there as a priority, it's the MZO one, just from that standpoint. And we have neighbors that are impacted by this to a number of different extremes. So I think we have partners with a number of First Nations across the board. So just wanted to raise that as well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you for that, Nathan, as well. Helen.
No, I just wanted to comment on getting right. We need to get politically involved, because if you drive past Assumption College, for example, there's like umpteen million housing projects going up in that, all along that whole road. There's like 5 or 6 of them, and they're huge. And I don't recall them ever consulting with Six Nations to do that. So yeah, I think we need to start looking what's going on in Brantford. They're just moving right ahead, and nobody's even talking to us or anything. So we need to let our voice be heard loud and clear. We haven't went anywhere. We're still here.
100% agree, Helen. And so we will make that loud and clear very soon to the city of Brantford and all necessary people in communities surrounding. Okay, Council, are there any further questions or comments in relation to the activities? Okay, seeing we're hearing done, then I'll look to just get a motion to accept as information at this time of the activities of the CAP team. Is there a mover and seconder to that?
I'll move it, Sherry Lynn.
Moved by Sherry Lynn, seconder.
Second, it's Nathan.
Second by Nathan. Thank you to you too. Are there any further questions or comments? Seeing or hearing none, all in favor?
Favor.
Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. Okay, I just want to pause really quickly and check in with Lonnie if there's anything further needed from our end on any of the items.
I think we've covered it all, Mark, for the yeah.
Okay, well, perfect. Thank you so much, Lonnie, as well as to everyone on the call, Phil, Robin, Taylor, all of you. Again, we will look to furthering our relationship. I know, again, as much as there seems to be, this image of internal issues, like Helen said, we basically got to get our ducks in order here. Because as we, continue to have these battles internally, there's things that are happening, constantly. And so, really looking to that relationship on how we best move forward. Obviously, you've seen, the importance of open and having these dialogues in front of community. We know still COVID being a challenge. So, there's many things that we would like to see and really just appreciative of each of you and looking forward to furthering these conversations, furthering the dialogue, and furthering our relationship to it being stronger and moving forward. So that being said, just want to say thank you to each of you.
Nyawa, nyawa.
Nyawa, have a good day. Okay, Council, the last item I have before we go to an adjournment is from the Spasm First Nation, request for support. Sorry if I could just check in with Teresa or Tammy on this item, on the lead to speak to this.
So, Steve, I'm not sure whether or not you were aware. I think this actual request was actually on the Leadership Council agenda a few weeks ago, and I'm not sure what the outcome was. I was hoping Jill would be here, but she had an appointment. So we can defer this letter to have further discussion when she's back.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I was going to say, because I do recall it from the Leadership Council, but would rather still like to touch base with Jill first on this. So Council, if we can, I will defer this item until we can have further deliberation on this piece. I see Nathan has his hand up.
Yeah, I can give the update, Chief, and it's just a simple update that the Leadership Council deferred this. And because of the due diligence around the technology in relation to land. So they deferred it as well.
Yes, okay, perfect. I'm recalling this. Thank you for that, Nathan. Okay, Council, that's all I have for the open session of political liaison. Maybe just really quickly, again, want to say thank you and Nyawa to each of you on the line. At this point, I know, again, just want to also, we are getting close to timing as well. We're going to start to lose a couple of individuals, so we will lose quorum. So it's going to start to move as quickly as possible. That being said, I will look to a motion to adjourn the open session. Is there a mover? Moved by Helen. Seconder?
I'll second, Wendy.
Second by Wendy. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. Thank you again, Yawa. I hope you all have a great day, and thank you for joining Political Liaison this morning.